It's time for the Sports Blitz, the only live-streamed local sports show in Arkansas, with all the latest on the sports stories that matter to you.
You know it's going to be a good show on a Monday when Weldon looks across and says, let's go. It's time to talk NCAA tournament. The brackets are out, and it is time for us to look at who we've got cutting down the nets in a couple of weeks. Welcome into the Sports Blitz on a Monday. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Maddie Lassiter inside the Cogswell Motors studios. Our Razorbacks are not going to be in the tournament. Shock to nobody.
They're in a tournament.
But they're in a tournament. They're in the NIT. Some people call it the not important tournament. Some people call it not in tournament. Not interesting tournament. Yeah, any number of things. But what does it mean for Arkansas? Get to host another game tomorrow night against the Fighting Larry Birds.
That's right. Indiana State, the Sycamores are coming to Bud Walton Arena, and there's no time to mess around. This game is tomorrow night at 8 o'clock on ESPN. So a quick turnaround for the Razorbacks. And one thing that I was thinking about, and I was talking with somebody yesterday, it's just strange to have a game in Bud Walton Arena after the SEC tournament. You know, when you have senior night and you have the kids walk out with their parents and the flowers and their framed jersey, and it's the last game in Bud Walton, you don't expect to see that arena until next fall when they're opening up against some cupcake. But the fact that you went to Atlanta, you played, and now you're coming back to Bud Walton, it is strange. But this will be a game where Arkansas, we're going to see if they want to play. If they really want to show up and play, they should handle Indiana State. I watched them a little over a week ago in the Missouri Valley Championship game against Wichita State. And they bothered Wichita State, but clearly the Wheat Shockers were the better team. The Razorbacks are better, but do they want to be there? Because I know Indiana State wants to be there. We know they will be motivated. If they win, it will set up a potential rematch with Cal, the Golden Bears. Now, Arkansas is the 3 seed in this particular bracket. They will face Cal on the road should they beat Indiana State and should Cal beat Utah Valley. Now, if Utah Valley pulls off the upset, then they will be coming to Bud Walton. Arkansas will be hosting another game.
So Arkansas's got a shot. Lots of fans I've seen from around the area planning to make the trip to Bud Walton. I don't know what tickets are going to be.
I know what they need to be.
They need to be as cheap as possible just to pack that sucker out, because that's the one advantage Arkansas is going to have. It's the fact that, you know, like you said, these fans didn't expect to go back to Bud Walton until they were playing a Patsy next year in November. And at this point now, they've got a shot to go back and play at least one more game. They'd have to go a little ways before they could host again, or do they even have a chance of hosting again?
Yeah, it just depends on who wins that next game. Utah Valley, I guess that'd be the 7th
If you're the
seed.
higher seed, you host.
Yeah, higher seed you host. So, yeah, it depends on if Cal or Utah Valley wins.
So we've got a lot of time today that we're going to spend on the real NCAA tournament. The 4-1 seeds, Florida, Arizona, Virginia, and Wichita State. Some teams overseeded, some teams underseeded, some teams left out. We'll look at that in greater detail here in just a moment. But let's get started real quickly with our Peters Family Living local sports look. We've got lots of local sports going on right now, but the big thing that we're trying to talk about this week is the Brightest Stars Banquet. I hope you're not getting tired of hearing about it, but we're trying to get exposure out there for it. I'm looking forward to going to the Help Network meeting on Friday to talk with some local business owners about the Brightest Stars Banquet. We're going to be giving away awards and Players of the Year and Coaches of the Year in every sport. You got basketball, football, all the way down to golf and cross country and swimming and track and some of these sports that don't ever get awarded for their efforts. And, you know, I've had several call me and ask me about what's going on and why are we doing this and this type of thing. And it's not going to be a money-making thing for River Valley Leader, for the Sports Blitz, for anybody. It's just to really honor the coaches and players of these sports that don't ever get any notification. I had a friend of mine who I won't name that is a swimming coach, and he said, you know, I can write up a nice, thing about our team who won all these awards and broke all these records, and, for space limitations and things like that and time, it just won't get run anywhere. So, it's just, to me, it's kind of unfair that some sports take precedence over the other ones. It's just the way business works that, especially in like the newspaper, they don't have but so much room, and, they're just going to have to put what they've got room for. So stuff like that, these kids and these student athletes get overlooked. So I'm looking forward to doing this for them, because really what we're going to do is any money that comes in is going to roll into next year. We're going to be able to put this event on, do more awards, bigger and better things with the banquet. So I need your help. I've talked to every athletic director via email and via the phone. I've called and left a message for each one of them, talked to several of them in person, and I've got several athletes that have been nominated, but our cutoff date is 8 days from today. It is the 25th of March. That's next Tuesday, and I need all the notifications or all the nominations in by next Tuesday so that we can get the ballot together and so we can get the finalists named, so that we can get the plaques made and all the plans made and all the tickets sold so that we can get this event off the ground. And I need help from you guys that are watching and listening right now to, I don't want to say put a little pressure on, but if that's what it takes, to call your athletic directors, call your coaches and say, hey, have you sent in your nominations? Because all these local schools in the area are eligible to send in, any players that they want for, it's sophomore, junior, senior, freshman, doesn't matter. Whoever it is that you think deserves to be nominated for Player of the Year in these sports, I believe that, it's time for you guys to get after it. We've got several of the schools that have responded, but I need Dover, Hector, lots of folks from Russellville and Danville to reply. I got a call from Two Rivers just the other day. Coach Harrison giving me some of his football guys. One guy had 17 touchdown receptions. One guy had 42. His quarterback had 42 touchdowns, 32 passing and 10 rushing. And his best linebacker, I don't want to quote this wrong because I wrote it down, and I think it was 197 tackles, if I'm not mistaken.
Who was this?
197 tackles. A kid named Caleb Lisenby from Two Rivers. So he's got some guys who they deserve to be nominated. They deserve to be rewarded. Gary Morrison, 17 touchdowns receiving, 82 receptions for 1,130 yards. And then Tyler Green, his quarterback, 32 touchdowns passing, 10 rushing, 2,700 yards passing in All-State. These guys deserve notification and awards, or at least the prestige of being nominated for these awards. So I need Dover, Hector, Danville, and several more from Russellville. I talked to Coach Johnny Johnson, so he knows it's out there. But Weldon, it's very important that these coaches nominate their players.
Let me ask you this. You said people are calling and questioning why we're doing this. Why would anybody ask that question?
Not in a bad way. They were just kind of saying, what's this all about? I'm hearing about it, and that's what it's about.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I can't say anybody might question an awards banquet, but I look at this as Brightest Stars banquet. It's going to be a really nice event. I'm always there to support the high school coaches and the high school players, because obviously I can't do my job as a college coach with the high school coaches and players doing their job. So it's good to see those guys be recognized. It's good to see those guys being coached and developed. And again, as I said before, you get a chance to recognize your peers, coach to coach, player to player. Different parents get to interact. It's a good networking opportunity. You can go and meet different people and just really have a good time watching these kids be acknowledged, because they work hard too. I know, sometimes we look at local sports or high school sports and we kind of diminish it a little bit, but they deserve to be recognized too for their hard work.
I've got a couple new ones. I've got 20 nominees, or 20 different coaches who have submitted nominees, and that's there's going to be a lot more that are done than that, because there's 15 in each school. So it's going to be a lot of work on some folks in the next couple of days. Really, all it is there's an email sent out, and it's got a link, and all you have to do is click that link, go to the place, put in your name, and then submit the names and stats if you want them recorded of the players that you want to nominate. Send it in. The Adobe Forms will hold that for me, email it to me, and we will be able to put the nominees together, put the ballots together for the coaches to vote on the winners of these awards. So I'm looking forward to getting that out in the next 8 days. A lot of work coming down the stretch here, and I'm looking forward to it. So again, state championship basketball is in the books. Several games, Weldon, that I saw that were interesting, and obviously I didn't go to Hot Springs to watch them, but followed them via Twitter. And I don't guess there's a place right. I guess I can go to the Arkansas Activities Association website and see a list of the winners. But I know North Little Rock, we talked about that. They beat Springdale. Jonesboro lost in the state championship game 2 years in a row. Last year, a 3 at the buzzer. Just a heartbreaking loss for Wes Swift and those guys. And this year, come out and beat Little Rock Parkview, who for a lot of the year was the number 1 team in the entire state overall.
Right.
So congratulations to Jonesboro. There's nothing better, and I've never been there myself. We lost in the state championship game my sophomore year, but I can assume that there is nothing better in high school sports than being able to lift that trophy. We are the champions, and playing around in the arena. That's just got to be an awesome feeling.
Yeah, it really does too. Jonesboro, as you mentioned, a team who they've knocked on the door. We know they've got some talent. We know they've been one of the top teams in Class 6A. They've had some battles, in non-conference play, playing against the North Little Rock, really testing themselves there. So I'm glad a team can finally break over the hump. Really, no matter where you're at, whether you're high school, college, or pro, it's always great to break through when you've been denied a few times. And so it's good for Jonesboro to finally get that done. That's really what stuck out to me from this whole championship series. Of course, you want to see North Little Rock and what they have, the players they have in Class 7A get the job done. But I was really curious about Jonesboro as to whether or not they would finish the deal off.
Looking through the scores here, Cedar Ridge back-to-back 2A boys state champions. They beat Malik Monk and EPC last year. They got Clarendon this year. 3A boys, I know Episcopal and Coach Brandon Friedel, assistant coach Brandon Friedel, got him a state championship there in 3A boys. They beat Charleston in girls action 5A. Huntsville, a team that we saw in this area play quite a bit, fell just a little bit short against Paragould in the 5A girls state championship game. There's nothing to be upset about in that one. That's a couple heavyweights playing there. Jonesboro, like we mentioned, beat Little Rock Parkview 66-54. Let's look through here. Greenwood girls beat Little Rock Parkview in 6A girls. I know that Conway girls beat North Little Rock beat Fort Smith Northside in 7A girls. What was the final score of that? Episcopal beat Charleston 62-56. Spring Hill girls beat, who was it? I just saw the score just a minute ago and I lost it. Mountainburg girls in 2A girls. And we talked about the other ones that took place on Thursday and Friday. So we know about who won those games. But congratulations again to those who won state championships in high school basketball. Now it's full steam ahead into spring sports. You've got softball and baseball going on, and I've been getting emails from Russellville about baseball. Been hearing about Russellville softball, but if you guys want to be covered in greater amount than you have in the past, email mark@rivervalleyleader.com. If you want your school or your team covered, I've said it a couple times, Weldon. I think it's important for these parents and families to understand. All you have to do is email us, mark@rivervalleyleader.com, and we'll post that stuff. You just give me a score, stats, coach's quote, anything you'd like included, I'll put it together for you.
No question. You do a really good job. You get the information up. You get it quickly. Also, Mark, I want to give a shout-out to the Arkansas Tech Wonder Boys basketball team. Came up short in the NCAA tournament this weekend, losing 56-44 to Central Missouri. But Division II, when you make the postseason, that tells you something right there. The fact that you've done some wonderful things. Regular season conference champ. I think they won the regular season conference champion. So again,
4 years in a row.
4 years in a row. So Coach K getting the job done. Just came up a little bit short this weekend, but still another outstanding season.
They were a favorite in the GAC, but as for how talented and powerful this team was compared to the last few years, this was sort of a rebuilding year for Arkansas Tech. So I look forward to them next year. You're going to get a Michael Perry. You're going to get Freddie Lee. You're going to get Kendrick Lee out there. With the squad that they've already got, Marshawn Arnold and some of those guys returning, it's going to be a fun year for Arkansas Tech basketball next year. Let's hit a break. When we come back, we're going to look at the NCAA tournament. Who have you got winning it? Who have we got winning it? Call us at 968 News and let us know.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
here's what you missed.
Updated news.
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
Developing stories.
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
And weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
Welcome back into the Sports Blitz on a Monday. Looking forward to a good week talking NCAA tournament basketball. Who's in, who's out, who's seated too high, who's seated too low. We've got our opinions. Who's going to win it all? We'll talk about that throughout the remainder of the show. As we mentioned earlier, Florida, Arizona, Wichita State, Virginia, all 4 1 seeds. We were talking about this before the show, and I know you have a strong opinion on this, but it seems like every year there's one part of the bracket that is just insane and at least one part of the bracket that's just terrible. Right. And you think, why wouldn't you just switch a couple of these teams and make and I know they do things regionally, but man, you could make these brackets much more even if you would just, go away from that a little bit here and there and, maybe make one team upset just to, or 2 teams upset just to kind of even things out.
Right.
But there are a couple of these brackets that look to be a little tougher than others.
They do. And look, I understand there are extenuating circumstances. First of all, the way the committee does it they make 4 or 5 versions of the bracket. So entering the last week or the last few days, conference tournaments, they have different editions of the bracket. Like I'm sure they had an edition of the bracket if Michigan had won the Big Ten tournament. They have a whole different bracket for Michigan, being a #1 seed and everything else being different based on that. A whole different bracket if different teams won different things. And they do have regional obligations. They have obligations in terms of keeping conference opponents away from each other from a certain point and keeping teams away from, you can't be within so many miles of your home. And they have all these things. I get that, but you're right. I think the dispersal of talent and quality of teams is really not that great this year. I've been talking about the West region. I don't really feel like there's much there. I like the bookends, Arizona and Wisconsin. I have no problem with that. But when you look at the West, I'm just going through here. San Diego State, there's a nice 4. Creighton's an okay 3. Baylor's a 6. Baylor's been hot. Oklahoma's a 5. There's just nobody really scaring you. Nebraska, Louisiana Lafayette, Oregon, BYU, who was a bubble team and got a 10 seed. I think that jumped out to a lot of people. So the West region is one, and then I think the South and the East are loaded.
I'm looking at the bracket, and I was talking about this. I tweeted this weekend. I didn't see before yesterday how anybody was going to be able to beat Florida. And yesterday, Kentucky played them pretty well. I just thought, man, Florida was a complete team. They're senior laden. They're a team that I wouldn't want any part of if I were an NCAA tournament team. But looking through the bracket, they got Kansas. If they were to match up in the Elite Eight to get to the Final Four, that'd be a tough match, especially if Joel Embiid was able to come back and be anything like what he had been. But Florida, they got the 4 seed UCLA on the top half of the bracket.
Yeah.
I don't think the round 1 winner run winner is going to give them any problem in their first game, which I know we hate that round one. And then I don't think Colorado Pitt going to give them any problem, but VCU, Stephen F. Austin, UCLA, Tulsa, the winner of that game, obviously the VCU and Stephen F. Austin are going to have to play first, and then UCLA and Tulsa. But the winner of that game, the 4-5 probably, I say that like the upsets don't happen. And what was it, 3-12 was won last year, so something crazy could easily happen. But I don't see anybody in that top half of the bracket giving Florida any trouble. But, some teams, it seems, have easier roads than others. Let's look real quickly at some of the teams we thought were underseeded, because there are plenty of teams who I think were overseeded. You mentioned Virginia and teams like that, but I was watching ESPN last night, and every single one of their people picked Michigan State to win it all. I've never seen anything like it, and most of them had Louisville in the championship game. Louisville, a 4 seed. I think we can both agree, definitely underseeded.
Yeah, Louisville, and I think they got hurt because they played in the American. Obviously, it's a new conference, but I think Louisville's body of work was that of teams who were seeded higher than they were, and I think that's where the complaint comes in. Like I said, I like Virginia. I think they're a good quality team. It's just the justification for putting them that far ahead of Louisville just isn't there. If Louisville were a 2, maybe I could understand it. But the Michigan State thing is fascinating that you mentioned it. A lot of people say, well, if they get healthy, they're the best team in the country, and that may or may not be so. I think they'll get past Delaware. I think they'll beat the Cincinnati-Harvard winner just because Cincinnati can't score, and that's one reason why I think they're going to have a hard time with Harvard, but I think they'll be more physical than Harvard. I think Michigan State's got too much for them. I think when you play against Virginia kills teams who want to speed them up and can't. That's why I think even though Memphis is talented, they're going to grind Memphis to death in that round of 32 game. But Michigan State can grind with people too. I think they'll beat Virginia, and I think they're going to play a fantastic Elite Eight game against Iowa State. Iowa State, to me, is the best offensive team in the country. If you have not watched the mayor, Fred Hoiberg's team play, they can flat out shoot and flat out score. I think it's going to be a great Elite Eight game.
Just above Louisville in the bracket is St. Louis at a 5 seed. Lost it's either 3 of their last 4 or 4 of their last 5 games, and a lot of people have NC State Xavier winner there in the 12 matchup. It's a play-in with the 12 seed. Long story. I don't really care for the way they do that much, but they do it that way. And now you've got NC State Xavier. A lot of people are picking them to go ahead, whoever it is, to beat St. Louis. So that means that a lot of people think, it may just be the matchup thing, but it seems like a lot of people think that St. Louis is a little overseeded.
Yeah, they are. They've got some good guard play. They're a tough team. They're another one of those physical, grinded out type teams. T.J. Warren's a really good player for NC State. If you haven't seen him play, he's going to be a first-round caliber pick, especially if he shows up in the NCAA tournament. But I'm looking at Louisville's road right now. They'd have to get through St. Louis. I don't think St. Louis can grind Louisville enough. I think they'll keep the score down, but I think Louisville can still get it done. The top of that Midwest, Mark, is just fascinating to me. You've got Wichita State. They're the number 1 seed. They have a tough road. I think they'll get past their first-round opponent, but they're going to face an athletic Kentucky team or Kansas State. I think Kentucky will win that game against Kansas State, but the athleticism of Kentucky, I know they're young, but they're starting to find themselves, and with that talent, I think that could be a problem for Wichita State, and if they do get by Kentucky, you're talking about a Louisville team that Wichita would have to get past, so that's a tough little part for a number 1 seed.
Yeah, I wanted to look at this real quick because it's always fun to me, and we talked about Arkansas a couple of minutes. Now it's funny. We talked about Arkansas couple weeks ago when they were in the midst of winning 7 of 8 games and they got a couple left. If Arkansas can just go through and do this and that, they'll be in the tournament. And what do we want? I'd rather see them at 11 or 12 seed than an 8 or a 9, because if they're an 8 or the 9, they have to face the 1 in the second round. We put the cart pretty far before the horse. But one of the most fascinating things to me about looking at the bracket is, no 1 seed's ever lost to a 16, but lots of them lose to the 8 or the 9. So in this bracket, which 8-9 seeds do you think have the best chance of upsetting ones? I think I see 2. I see Arizona play in either Oklahoma State or Gonzaga in the second round. Those two teams I think are capable, and I think Wichita State against either Kentucky or Kansas State, both of those two teams are capable. I don't see Memphis, George Washington beating Virginia.
Yeah.
I don't think Colorado or Pittsburgh can hang with Florida, but those two in the West and the Midwest, those two are going to be fun 8-9 matchups with the one in the second round.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, and to me, it's a shame because I think Pitt, they were playing good basketball. They nearly beat Virginia, but I just think Florida's a bad matchup for them, so I don't give them a chance. I'm with you. Kentucky, we've talked about the talent all year long. They're starting to show it. If they continue to dial it in, this is a team that can make a run at a lot of people. Remember, they did beat Louisville earlier in the year. I mean, Kentucky can play when they're dialed in, when Cal can get those guys corralled. Wichita State, they have not seen that much length and athleticism throughout this season, even though they're undefeated. So that could certainly be a problem. And then, the Gonzaga-Oklahoma State winner, that's a dangerous one. Nobody plays better basketball to me than Gonzaga in terms of execution and just overall skill level against the Oklahoma State team who's got 3 potential draft picks on their team. So I think that could be problematic for Arizona, either one of those teams.
Do you think any of the 1 seeds didn't deserve to be 1s?
No, I think you can make a case for all of them. I think you can make a case for teams who aren't a 1 seed to be a 1 seed, but I don't know if you can make a strong case in putting them in favor of one of the teams who are number 1.
Yeah, I was looking at, Wichita State. I don't want to say they backed in. They were undefeated, and they went to the Final Four last year. But, I think that a lot of these pollsters and even the people that were making these brackets, they probably didn't want Wichita State to end up being a number 1 seed. They would have much rather have a team like, Michigan State play well throughout the year, or Villanova to stay hot and take one of those 1 seeds. But I can see, where some of these guys putting the bracket together wouldn't have liked Wichita State and Virginia being 1 seeds. Florida, Arizona, don't have a whole lot of problem with those two because Florida just rolled through the SEC. Did not lose an SEC game in the regular season or the tournament, so they definitely deserve the overall number 1. Arizona, the 1. Don't really have a problem with that. Although in that West bracket, I hadn't watched a whole lot of Wisconsin this year, but the way they play just makes me want to.
That's what I would just caution you. Don't just look at Wisconsin's offense is actually better than their defense this year. It was just really weird. Yeah, they still play kind of slow, but their defense to me isn't even that good this year. It's their offense. With Kaminsky and where they always have those versatile 4 types that can do things. Wisconsin's a team to me that I think if they matched up with Arizona, they could put Arizona to sleep. And Arizona's one of those. When you get an athletic team and put them to sleep and they don't play well, yep. I think it could kind of be one of those kind of matchups. But what's curious to me, Mark, what's cool is Wichita State, we think of them as, they snuck into a number 1 seed. If you look at the true seeding, actually Virginia was the final number 1 seed because they're on the same side as Florida. So you got the number 1 overall matched up with the number 4 overall in Virginia. So Wichita State, it appears they were comfortably, relatively speaking, a number 1.
All right, one more. I'm sneaking this on well, and we're going to give our champions after the break. But before we go to break, one more thought that I wanted to get to. It seems like every year there's a sort of Cinderella. So I'm going to count Cinderella as far as a double-digit seed. Which double-digit seed do you think has the best chance to go far in this tournament? I've got my eye on a couple of them.
Yeah.
Right now, a lot of talk about Harvard and how good they are overall as a 12 seed. If they can get past Cincinnati, they've got one of the best teams. And a lot of people, if you're looking at the Vegas odds, Michigan State's got the second best odds to win the whole thing. So Harvard would have to play them in the second round. So that's a big seed as far as a 12 seed having a chance to go through with a really good team. But who is a double-digit seed do you think has the best chance of moving on and going a long way?
I have a couple of them, and they're sort of in the same part of the bracket. I'm looking at the bottom part of the East. I think St. Joe's.
Yep.
I think St. Joe's is a team. They're playing UConn. I love Shabazz Napier. I like his guard leadership. That's what you're looking for. But St. Joe's is a good team. St. Joe's, they're playing well right now in that A-10 conference. They earned themselves a 10 seed. Some people thought they were a bubble team, but as a 10 seed, you can tell they were comfortably in. So I'll look out for them. I'd also watch out for Providence. They're going to play North Carolina in the first round. I think Carolina should be favored to win, but Ed Cooley's done a really nice job. Providence scored it down the dumps. He's built them over the last few years. North Carolina, we know they're a team that can beat anybody and get beat by anybody. So if Providence can get by Carolina, I don't trust many teams in the shootout against the Mayor's team at Iowa State, but Providence is a team that could do a little bit of that. So I'd keep my eye on those couple of teams.
St. Joe's was on my list too, as far as team. I watched a little bit about them this morning. I've probably paid less attention to college basketball this year. Got a baby on the way in a couple months, so it's been a busy time than I've ever spent watching and following college basketball. But hearing St. Joe's name takes me all. It's the same coach, Phil Martelli, been there since way back when. And I remember when I was in high school watching that St. Joe's team with Delonte West and Jameer Nelson. They were a squad. They were fun to watch, and he's got that team rolling again back to number 10 in the East there. I also look at Nebraska. They've got, I think, a favorable matchup as an 11 seed against Baylor.
Yeah.
But Baylor's come on and played well. I realize that. But if Nebraska were able to beat them, then they can face Creighton in the second round, and they can figure out how to stop Doug McDermott. You pretty much beat Creighton if you figure out how to stop Doug McDermott. That's easier said than done, though.
Yeah, it really is. I think that'll be a part to watch, too. Also, watch out. They're not a double-digit seed, but New Mexico, a lot of guys back from last year. They don't have Tony Snell, but Kendall Williams, Alex Kirk inside. That's a team that I wouldn't just sweep Kansas right on past there. Watch out for New Mexico as a 7 seed.
We're going to give you who we think is going to win the national championship right after this break. We're going to look at our CrossFit Russellville poll question. That is the CrossFit Russellville poll question today. Who is going to win the national championship in the NCAA tournament? Who's going to be cutting down the nets? Give us a call, 968 News. We'd love to hear from you today. Got plenty more Sports Blitz right after this break.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the 4s.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
It's that time. Looking at the actual bracket right now, that's Maddie's shot in the dark bracket's what he calls it. He's got Florida Gonzaga in the national championship game. Don't throw anything at me. It's Maddie's bracket. Call us at 968 News. Tell us what you think about the NCAA tournament bracket. We're going to go through the round of 32. We're not going to tell you why we think the teams are going to win in the first round, but we're going to look at the matchups for the second round as we see them, just so that we can kind of move through this a little faster. I think I've got Florida, Pitt, VCU, UCLA, Ohio State, Syracuse, and then New Mexico, Kansas up in the South in the second round. What do you have?
We're identical. I like Pitt over Syracuse. Again, I thought Pitt with a nice draw could make some noise, but not against Florida. A lot of people like Stephen F. Austin over VCU. I'll take VCU, and then VCU and UCLA will match up. Ohio State, Syracuse will be good, and New Mexico and Kansas.
And then in the bottom part, we'll just go straight down the bracket here. Go to the East, Virginia, and I've got Memphis. Maddie's got George Washington here. He's also got Harvard beating Cincinnati. I'm going to go Cincinnati in that one. Michigan State. And then down into the second half of that bracket, North Carolina, Iowa State. I've got St. Joe's over Connecticut as well, and Villanova. What do you got?
I've got Virginia and Memphis. I've got Cincinnati and Michigan State. North Carolina gets by Providence, even though I think Providence is a Cinderella possibility. The mayor gets by NC in North Carolina Central. St. Joe's I like. I'm still going to go UConn right now, but call me back on Thursday. And I've got Villanova and UConn.
Moving over to the West, I've got Arizona, Oklahoma State. Maddie's got Gonzaga there. I've got Oklahoma surviving the 12-5 upset bid of North Dakota State. A lot of people picking that one. I've got San Diego State as the 4 winning in that one. Baylor, Creighton. I hadn't even, you know what? I've got Wisconsin, I know, in the 215, but that Oregon BYU game, it's one of those that I fill out everything, leave that one, and then come back to it later and think about it some more.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Oregon, but it's in one of those check with me on Thursday. And then in the bottom half, I've got Wichita State, Kentucky. I've got St. Louis for right now, but that's one that I'm really thinking about going the other way on a 12-5. And then Louisville, I've got UMass. What?
It's a play-in game opponent.
Okay. You're picking Tennessee to beat UMass.
Yeah.
Then Duke, and then he's got Arizona State. I'll go with Texas, and then Michigan there in the Midwest.
Yeah, I've got Arizona. I've got Arizona and Gonzaga. Certainly Oklahoma State has talent, but I think Gonzaga just knows how to play more, so I've got Gonzaga. Oklahoma, San Diego State, I've got that. Baylor and Creighton, and Oregon and Wisconsin. I'm picking Oregon because Will Collinsworth got hurt in the WCC tournament for BYU, so I'm not sure about them. Bottom part, Wichita State wins. I think Kentucky gets by Kansas State. St. Louis, I've got them advancing. Louisville over Manhattan. Let's see, Duke matching up against Tennessee. Yeah, I'm like Matt. I think Tennessee can get past Iowa. They can get past UMass. And then I had a tough time, but I'm going with Texas over Arizona State, although I like Jahi Carson for Arizona State. I like star players. Just think Texas's defense in the half court is too good, and I got Michigan matching up against Texas.
Before we go back and look at the next round there, Duke, Tennessee in the second round. I guess it'd be the round of 32 going into the Sweet 16 there. That would be a tough one for Duke because the inside presence that Jarnell Stokes in Tennessee could play with there. And like I mentioned, Jordan McRae from Tennessee, good Lord. He just seems to be an Arkansas killer. And I saw a Dunk of the Year nominee of his last night, too.
Yeah, Wichita State, yeah.
Guy can play. So I can see Tennessee giving Duke all they want there in the second round or round of 32. I'm trying to be a little more conscientious here as they're calling the first round these play-in games. It's a friggin' joke. All right, let's go back to the South region. Florida Pitt, I don't see that even being a game. Florida wins that one. VCU, UCLA, I've got VCU as well over UCLA. Actually, wait. I think I left that one blank. Maddie's got VCU over UCLA. I'm going to have to decide. That's one of those check with me later. I've got Ohio State, Syracuse. I've got Syracuse, and then Kansas rolling past New Mexico. Maddie's got Stanford here. Virginia, George Washington, we've both got I've got Memphis there in that one, but I've got Virginia beating them. Then Cincinnati and Michigan State, got Michigan State. And then North Carolina, Iowa State, I'm going with the mayor. I'm going Weldon's boy, Hoiberg there. And Iowa State, one of the best offensive teams in the entire bracket to win that one. And then we've both got St. Joe's. Weldon's got Connecticut against Villanova. I've got Villanova winning on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Florida over Pitt. Let's see, UCLA and VCU. I think Kyle Anderson, Jordan Adams, I think those boys can handle the pressure, so I'm going to go with UCLA in that one. Let's see, where are we going, Elite Eight or just to the Sweet 16?
Just to the Sweet 16.
To the Sweet 16, all right. I have Syracuse going over Ohio State, and then I've got Kansas getting by New Mexico, although I'm not saying that's a slam dunk. Memphis will lose to Virginia. Memphis can't. They can only play one speed. That's up tempo. If you grind them out, they're in trouble. Michigan State over Cincinnati. Cincinnati can't score. That's a huge problem with me. Iowa State over North Carolina, and I have Villanova getting past UConn.
And then on the other side, I've got Arizona beating Gonzaga, but Maddie obviously got Gonzaga in the national championship game. He's got Gonzaga winning that one. He's got Oklahoma and San Diego State. He's got San Diego State coming through that one. That's a check with me, but I think San Diego State right now would be my favorite in that one. Creighton Baylor. I've got Creighton winning that one, and Wisconsin winning against BYU Oregon winner in the second round there. I've got Oregon winning that game in the first round. Just like Weldon said, they lost one of their best players in the conference tournament, BYU speaking. And then Wichita State, Kentucky. He's got Kentucky winning that game. I've got Wichita State right now. It's a check with me because, man, Kentucky, if they were to get hot, this is one of those teams that, man, a lot of people, they were number one in the country coming into the season. A lot took Florida to the horn last night. They could be a team to watch out for as an 8 seed, man. That's rough. If one seed's going to go down, I think that Wichita State will be the first one. And then St. Louis, Louisville. I think Louisville is just entirely too good for St. Louis there. Tennessee, Iowa over UMass. I think we're both on the same page there. Duke, though, I think is going to win that game, but that one could be a fun one. And then I've got Texas. He's got Arizona State against Michigan. Either way, we've both got Michigan winning the game.
Yeah. And going back up top for me, I have Arizona over Gonzaga. I just think there's too much length, size, and athleticism for Arizona for Gonzaga to deal with. Oklahoma and San Diego State, I've got the Aztecs getting past that one. Baylor and Creighton, I like Creighton because of their offense. Oregon, Wisconsin. Again, I think Wisconsin is one of the best offensive teams Bo Ryan has had, so I've got them moving on to the Midwest. Kentucky, I have Kentucky over Wichita State. I just think they're dialed in, they're athletic, they're physical. Wichita State's no pushover, but I like Kentucky. St. Louis over Louisville. Again, I think Louisville is able to score just enough. They will be slowed down, but not enough to where St. Louis will take them out.
So you've got Louisville winning that one?
Yeah, I've got Louisville beating St. Louis. And then Duke against Tennessee, I think you're absolutely right. Tennessee will give them problems. I just think Duke's a little bit more consistent, so I'll give Duke the edge over the Vols, and I have Michigan over Texas.
This is where it gets fun. We get to the Sweet 16. We get to decide who's going to the regional finals. I've got Florida beaten. I'm probably going to have UCLA in that one, but right now Maddie's got VCU on his bracket here. So either way, I see Florida reaching the Elite Eight. I've got Syracuse and Kansas also playing there, and I've got Kansas going through into the Elite Eight. Virginia, Michigan State, that one's a tough one. A lot of people are predicting Michigan State to win it all, and it's getting to the point where, if you pick Wichita State past Kentucky or if you pick Virginia past Michigan State, that's sort of an upset with the one seed winning. I'm going to go with the crowd, though, right now. Michigan State getting healthy at the right time, got a senior-laden team, one of the best coaches in the country. They know what they're doing. They know who they are, and I think Michigan State can win that one. And then down at the bottom, Villanova, North Carolina. Well, I've got Maddie's got North Carolina. I've got Iowa State. That one's going to be a barn burner. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Iowa State wins it, but for right now, I've got in pencil Villanova winning that one.
Yeah, I mean, these are really, really good matchups. I think Florida takes out UCLA. I just think there's too many dimensions. Syracuse and Kansas will be a really good one. I think Syracuse and that length in that zone with freshmen and young players who don't see much of it, I think they'll frustrate them. I think Syracuse will get to the Elite Eight. Then we have Virginia, Michigan State. Really good one. The thing with Virginia is Virginia can grind anybody and they can beat anybody, but they can keep anybody in a game because the possessions are so low. I think they'll trip up just enough. Michigan State will get them. And then I've got them meeting Iowa State because I think Iowa State takes out Villanova.
All right. And then in the West, Maddie's got Gonzaga, San Diego State. Gonzaga winning that one. I've got Arizona going on past them. And then in the 2-3, a lot of us have Creighton and Wisconsin. That one's a tough one for me because I could see Creighton losing to Baylor in the second round, so I have a hard time. I'm one of those, when I fill out my bracket, I don't want to make a 2-3 game mistake.
Right.
If I see a team where I like their matchup in the next round, but I don't really like their matchup in this round, I have a hard time picking them to go on and win more games. So Creighton, I've got Wisconsin winning that game, although I do like Creighton. I like Doug McDermott, 3,000 points in his career. He deserves all the accolades that he's gotten. I've got Wisconsin reaching the Elite Eight there. Maddie's got Kentucky over Wichita State, so he's got them meeting up with Louisville. I've got Wichita State, Louisville. That's going to be a great game. Last year, Wichita State leading late in that one, and Louisville is able to come back and win that one en route to the national championship. if Wichita State were to get past Kentucky, imagine the road that they would have been on. They've already had to play Kentucky, who was the number one team in the country preseason. They would have had to play Louisville, who is a defending champion and just rolling through right now. And then if they were to win that, they just have to go on and face all these hot teams. I've got Louisville winning that game, but if Wichita State were able to take care of business there, what would they be by then? They'd be 35-6. They'd be 37-0 if they beat Louisville in that one. And then in the bottom half of the bracket, Duke, who we expect to have a tough one in the second round or the round of 32, and Michigan State, or in Michigan. Maddie's got Michigan. I'm going to roll with that right now for the time being. That's another penciled-in game.
Yeah. I'm looking back up top here in the West. I do have Arizona getting past San Diego State, getting to the Elite Eight. I've got Wisconsin over Creighton. I think it'll be a good game, but I think Wisconsin gets by just because I think top to bottom they're a better team. Louisville and Kentucky, I have meeting up in the Sweet 16. I think it'll be a rematch. Louisville gets revenge this time, and I think the Cardinals will win. Michigan and Duke should be a good one. Duke actually won the meeting earlier this season, but I just think Michigan offensively right now, they're on another planet. I know they lost to a Michigan State team who's healthier and grinded them out in the conference championship game, but I just think Michigan offensively, they're on another level. Duke right now, Duke's defense is terrible. Duke's physicality inside is terrible. I think Michigan gets the job.
It's gonna be hard for Duke to get a rebound.
Yeah.
That seems to be their issue right now. Jabari Parker leading them in every aspect. In Michigan, John Beilein and that squad, they deserve a lot of credit for what they've done with a completely rebuilt team. No Tim Hardaway, they've got a rebuilt team. No Trey Burke, they've got a lot of talent off the team from last year. We're right on the doorstep of the Final Four. We'll tell you who we've got going to the Final Four from the Elite Eight, and then also into the national championship game right after this break in our last segment.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
It's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 today.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
I hope you're looking forward to Thursday and Friday, as I feel Thursday and Friday of this week are the best 2 days in sports. You've got 16 games a day, NCAA tournament, round of 64 action. nothing, in my opinion, better than the wealth of college basketball that gets to be shown on those 2 days as you break across these first round, and I'm going to call them first round. Forget that stinking play-in stuff being called the first round, because they're not even in the dang tournament until they actually get in one of these 16 seeds. So I'm calling it the first round. Sick of it. Thursday and Friday, first round basketball action in the NCAA tournament. All right, it's time for us to get down to the nitty-gritty, our Final Four. Right now, Kansas, Florida, both of us. No, you had Syracuse beating Kansas, didn't you?
I did.
We're about to find out here in just a second. So I've got Florida beating. Wait, we just got to our Elite Eight, didn't we? We haven't even given who's in Elite Eight, have we?
Yeah, I think we're ready for the Final Four.
All right, we are ready for the Final Four. I was just making sure we hadn't. Skipping around here in my mind. Florida, I've got Florida over Kansas, as Maddie does. Looks like Weldon, I just gave away his. And then on the bottom half there, Michigan State, Villanova. We both got Michigan State in that one. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Iowa State there instead of Villanova, but we've mentioned that. And then Iowa State against Michigan State would be a fun one there. But we've got Michigan State coming through and winning in the East to get to the Final Four. So Florida, Michigan State.
I've got Florida over Syracuse. Again, Syracuse is a team I have in the Elite Eight right now, but I'm concerned because offensively they are challenged and they are inconsistent. But we know when that long zone gets to people, I mean, they're holding people like to under 40 points. Remember last year in the tournament, it was devastating what that zone can do. A little bit different team now. Your guards aren't quite as big, but Tyler Ennis is one of the better guards in the country. Forget about freshman, one of the better guards in the country. But I like the Florida Gators all around. I just think they're too much. They will win the South region. And I have Michigan State, even though everybody else is picking Michigan State. That's why I hate to do it. But I've got Michigan State slowing the Mayor down just enough and getting to the Final Four from the East. In the West, I'm back and forth. You know, you got some check with you games. I got a few myself. One of them is Arizona and Wisconsin. One way I can see Wisconsin kind of putting Arizona to sleep, but in other ways, the athleticism and the balance of Arizona could be too much as well. So right now, I'll go with Arizona just because I don't want to have too many teams from one conference in the Final Four. And then I've got Louisville and Michigan meeting, a rematch of last year's national championship game in the Midwest. I like the Wolverines this time around. I think they get it done. Nick Stauskas, Glenn Robinson III. You know, they're not even missing Mitch McGarry. Just picture if Mitch McGarry were on this team.
They'd be a favorite.
They would really be out there, but still they can flat out put the ball in the hole. I got Michigan been winning the Midwest.
I like it. Going back up to the West, Maddie's got Gonzaga over Creighton. I've got a hard time not going with Arizona all the way through there. I've got Arizona, Wisconsin in the Elite Eight. And if Arizona's able to handle, like Weldon mentioned earlier, Wisconsin's offense this year better than their defense, but they're always one of those teams that, you know, it's Big Ten basketball. I hate watching it. And I've got Michigan State in the Final Four, so what does that say about me? But I've got Arizona somehow finding a way to make it through. A lot of talent on that team, man. Just a lot of ability on the offensive side. I think that they're good enough to get past Wisconsin and reach the Final Four. So right now I've got 2 1 seeds and a 4. And then on the bottom half in the Midwest, Michigan, Louisville, to me, is an absolutely fascinating game. It's a rematch of last year's national championship game. I've got Louisville coming out on top again. Would not be surprised at all, like you said, Weldon, if Michigan were to win that game. Right now, our brackets are looking pretty similar, but I've got Louisville and Michigan State 2 4 seeds, and then at the top, I've got Florida and Arizona 2 1 seeds.
Yeah, I mean, we're similar, right? We've got Florida, Michigan State, Michigan, and Arizona. You ready for the Final Four?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Here we go. Florida and Michigan State. I think these are the 2 top teams, if I had to really say, in the country right now. But they do have to play each other in the Final Four. A little bit of 2000 flavor to it. You know, Tom Izzo, Billy Donovan getting together in the Final Four again. This time, though, I'm going to go with Billy Donovan. I think Florida's balanced. I think they have guard play. They have veteran leadership. They have a lot of things. They're not the perfect team. They're not supremely talented, but they do have a great mix to them. I think they get to the finals. And who will they take on? I think they're going to take on the Michigan Wolverines. Again, I like teams who can flat out score. Arizona would be a tough matchup for them. Wouldn't be surprised if Arizona got the job done. But I got the Florida Gators and the Michigan Wolverines.
All right, looking at the South and the East there, Florida, Michigan State. I've wanted, like I said, to go with Michigan State. And if they were on the other side of the bracket, they'd be in the national championship game as far as my bracket goes. But I've got Florida beating Michigan State in that one. Just so much talent, man. They've got a great coach, just like Michigan State. They're not going to be outmanned as far as it goes. Look at Patrick. Go look at a picture of Patrick Young. Just Google that dude. He is a friggin' Hercules. He is huge, and I just think Florida's got enough to withstand the pressure and the punishment that Michigan State can dole out. And then on the other side, I've got Arizona, Louisville. I've got Louisville finding a way to win that one. It's one of those we've been here and done that type things. We've got a great coach. We've got a great system. We've got a great star. Russ Dickulus going crazy there. Russ Smith had 42 the other night in the I guess it was the semifinals of the conference tournament. They're hitting on all cylinders at the right time. They got lucky with how bad they were seeded for them to be in the bracket that they're in. I say lucky. They're going to have to face some stiff competition. But in my opinion, them, as far as getting to the national championship game, they got lucky to get where they got based on the matchups that they had. So I've got Louisville and Arizona there. I've got Louisville winning that one, and then I've got Florida beating Michigan State, setting up Florida, Louisville in the national championship game.
For me, this is where I have to make a decision because you know my position. I'm a firm believer in one bracket. That's all I do. So I have to evaluate, do I want value to try to win a pool, or am I trying to make it to where Warren Buffett needs to get his checkbook out, making it out to me? Because the philosophies conflict because you could go with a lot of chalk and a lot of easy picks, and you'd probably be right in a lot of cases. But if you're in a pool where you're not trying to be perfect, you're just trying to beat people, you need value. You need to make up ground on people and gain edges. So this is where I'm going to have to make a decision because I've got Florida and I've got Michigan. I think Florida's going to win the national championship. I think Florida's going to win. But in a pool, so does everybody else. And so if I'm behind or if I have a few issues that I need to make up on championship night, if I got Florida and the person in front of me asked Florida, well, I'm toast. So Michigan, to me, they are the value pick. Nobody's got them in the championship. At least not many people have them in the championship. A lot of people have them struggling to get out of that region. You can make up a lot of ground. I get you could lose some ground, but you can make it up too if you were to put the Wolverines in the national championship game. So I'm going to have a cliffhanger to be continued. Florida versus Michigan in the national championship game. ... Stay tuned.
I like it. Well, see, Weldon and I were talking about this before the show, and when he's talking about value, I kind of saw it in the semifinal in the Florida-Michigan State matchup where all these people have Michigan State going to the national championship and winning it. Like I said, literally every ESPN expert on the bracket show last night, all four of them picked Michigan State, Louisville in the finals, and Michigan State winning it. So for me, that value came in staying with the team that I thought was the best anyway in Florida to get through the national championship game because I could have already won the bracket right there. If everybody has Michigan State and I get Florida to go to the national championship, there I am. And as long as somebody from the other side didn't, somebody else in the pool didn't have somebody from the other side winning the whole thing, I could have won it already. So I've got Florida winning the national championship, beating Louisville. Like he said, though, this is a to be continued. We're going to take these brackets. We're going to print them off. We're going to put them on the wall in here, our sheets of integrity. Like he said, though, I'm more of a fill out several brackets how I feel it, but one bracket is going to be the way. I may just enter a couple of these things online and, here and there. Those things are just for fun, and I may come back bragging about them later on. But you ask me how this one did. And this is the one that matters, okay? There's always this one, and I called it a couple years ago jokingly when I turned it in, the key. Like,
I remember you did that.
You want to check against the key. Yeah, that bracket was crap. But
I will say this, though, because you mentioned I know what ESPN did, but you do have to keep in perspective. It's just four dudes. Because if you look at right now the percentages, and it's early, only 20% of the people are picking Michigan, 46% are picking Florida.
Okay.
So, but I know ESPN people, for some reason, they all went off on their own thing. But I'm not sure that still represents what people are going to do, though.
Well, that's good to know.
So
we've got a bracket challenge pool on ESPN. We'd love for you to get in it. It's just for pride, just for maybe we'll interview you if you win it, and we'll just give you your moment in the sun. Our tournament challenge, our group is the Sports Blitz. If you go to ESPN.com and you get in a bracket challenge, enter the Sports Blitz, and that is your That is the group name. That's also the password. You take out the spaces and you just type the Sports Blitz, all one word. That's your password. It's a locked group because we don't just want randos in there. We want folks that listen and watch the Sports Blitz, and we've got a couple in there right now, several actually, for the fact that there's no prize that joined it. Last year we had 70-some-odd people in it, and we gave out a prize. This year, with all the banquet stuff and everything going on, hadn't had time to really find a prize for it. So we're just going to do it for fun and for pride, and the winner, we'll just interview on here. We'll ask you about your genius picks and how you decide. Well, it's probably going to be Weldon or me, just saying. You guys aren't smart enough to beat us. But we're looking forward to a great NCAA tournament. May have some news for you on Wednesday about the NCAA tournament, and we'll probably have some changes to our bracket before time comes to tip it off. So Arkansas, Indiana State tomorrow in the NIT, the Now It's Important tournament. And Arkansas, man, well, like we talked about earlier, in closing, hold some home court. Just hold serve at home. Use that incredible atmosphere, which I can see people being really stoked and really excited to be in Bud Walton one last time this year to see off these guys into the second round of the NIT.
Absolutely.
It'd be nice for these guys to make a nice run in the NIT because next year the seat's already going to be really hot on Mike Anderson. He could take a little pressure off if they make a deep run.
He does, and we've seen teams turn NIT appearances into springboards. Obviously, we back-to-back champs like South Carolina a few years ago, but Wichita State, they were able to use it for a springboard. A lot of teams have done it. North Carolina, even they fell out of the tournament, and they went to the NIT and made a run, helped them for the future. So you hope that Arkansas is able to do that in basketball. Baseball team lost 2 of 3 to Florida, but they were able to salvage a little bit of the series, winning 9-3 in Gainesville yesterday. Offense struggling a little bit, lost 2-1 on opening night, then lost 1-0 in a shutout on Saturday, but a 9-3 win to sort of salvage things, make yourself feel good. They are back in action tomorrow against Grambling Bomb Stadium, 5 o'clock.
Looks like the spring practice closed to the media, so we don't have any information from spring football practice, but we'll hear from Brett Bielema as he speaks about the spring practice and what he saw. We'll give you some information on that. It's interesting to us to see how these guys have developed, who gets swole and who has put on, lost some weight that they didn't need to have, who got faster, who's changing positions, who's sitting atop the depth chart this early on in the spring. Doesn't necessarily matter, but at least it's something to talk about football related. We mentioned Jabril Durham, a 6'1 guard from Seminole State College, committing to play basketball for the University of Arkansas. Things are kind of turning around for the basketball program. I know we were kind of woe is me as Arkansas lost the final 2 games of the year, but they've made their way in the recruiting trail. They got Anton Beard coming. Maybe, just maybe, they can convince guys like Kayvon Allen and Malik Monk to keep this Arkansas train rolling as far as great players from in the state going and playing for the university. So I'm hoping that these guys can start a trend and Arkansas basketball can pick back up. We've seen glimpses of hog ball. Maybe we'll see some more tomorrow. We're out of time, so we'll be back on Wednesday to talk a little more NCAA tournament, a little bit more about Phil Jackson going to New York. We didn't hit that today. Bunch of different stuff. What else did we miss? Well, there's just a bunch of stuff. Get your $1 billion bracket. Miami Heat got a win last night. NFL free agency. Get your $1 billion bracket filled out so Warren Buffett has to pay you $25 million a year for the rest of your life, or 40 years. So there's plenty of stuff that we'll hit on Wednesday. For Weldon and Maddie, I'm Mark saying so long. We'll see you at 11 o'clock on Wednesday at rivervalleyleader.com with more Sports Blitz.